Top-tier backend developer? I'm not just talking about being a coder. I mean a true architect. Well, you're in the right place. Let's map out what that journey, that climb to the peak of the profession really looks like for 2026.
And right out of the gate, we have to get real about the core challenge. The fact is, the systems we're building today are getting pushed to their absolute limits. We're talking unpredictable traffic, crazy complex integrations, and now the massive demands of AI. The pressure is seriously on.
So before we even start our climb, let's just get the lay of the land. Let's take a look around from Basecamp. What does being a backend developer even mean today? Because, it's changed.
Yeah, it's really not just about writing simple database logic for a website anymore. Modern backend development, it's about engineering entire systems. We're building these intelligent, distributed platforms that have to handle all that real-world pressure without, breaking a sweat. Or the bank. The big mental shift here is moving from thinking in lines of code to thinking in whole systems. It's a different ballgame. And what does that pressure actually look like in the real world? Well, just take a look at WhatsApp. Their backend system, which is built on a language called Erlang, a language specifically designed to handle a ton of things happening all at once, well, it processes over 100 billion messages every single day. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that kind of scale.
And it's not just WhatsApp, right? This is how the giants do it. Netflix uses something called a microservices architecture to stream movies to millions of people at the same time. Uber relies on languages like Go for that super fast real-time ride matching. You see the pattern? Each one of these titans chose their tool specifically to solve a massive scaling problem. This isn't just theory. This is literally the engine that powers the modern internet. Okay, so we've seen the mountain. We know how big it is. Now it's time to pack our bag for that first part of the climb. This is your foundational gear, the absolute, must-have, non-negotiables for this journey. Look, every journey starts with the first few steps, and in backend, it boils down to these three. First, you have to master a language. Python, Node.js, Java, they're all fantastic, versatile places to start. Second, you need Git. It's just the universal language of how we collaborate on software, period. And third, you have to understand how data is stored and retrieved. Everything, and I mean everything, builds on top of this foundation.
And this right here, this is one of the first major forks in the road you'll encounter. It's a fundamental choice. Are you building something with really structured, predictable data, like an online store? A relational SQL database like PostgreSQL is going to be your best friend. Or are you dealing with huge amounts of flexible, messy data for a real-time app? Well then, you're living in the world of NoSQL with something like MongoDB. Knowing which one to pick and why is a critical early skill.
All right, foundational gear is packed. We are ready for the main climb. This next part is all about building that core engine. These are the skills and tools you're going to be using pretty much every single day.
This is your day-to-day reality. You're not writing everything from scratch. You're using a framework like Django or Spring to be way more efficient. You're building and securing APIs. Those are the contracts that let different services talk to each other, and using standards like OAuth to make sure only the right people get access. You're using caching to make things fast, writing tests to make sure things don't break, and using message brokers like Kafka to handle tasks in the background so your app always feels snappy. This is the heart of backend work. Okay, you've mastered the core skills. Now the climb gets steeper. The air gets a little thinner. We're getting close to the summit. And this is where we stop thinking just about single applications and we start thinking about entire systems that serve millions of people.
And here it is. This is the question that every successful project eventually has to face. That first application you built, the Monolith, it got you off the ground. It was simple. It was fast. But now, success is your biggest problem. How on earth do you scale?
Well, a lot of the time, the answer is to start breaking things apart. See, the problem with that monolith is that everything is tangled together. A tiny change in one spot can accidentally break something totally unrelated over here. It becomes a mess. Microservices, on the other hand, let you scale and update individual pieces of your app independently. Now, sure, it's more complex to manage, there's no doubt about it, but it's what allows companies like Netflix to operate at a global scale. So how do you manage all those little microservices? You're definitely not doing it by hand. You package them up into containers with Docker so they run the same way everywhere. Then, you use an orchestrator like Kubernetes to manage and scale them all automatically. And you run this whole operation on a cloud platform like AWS or Azure. This trio? This is the modern infrastructure stack.
So we've made it. We've reached the summit. But wait, in 2026, there's one more layer. This is the view from the very top, looking out at the one skill that's going to define the next generation of architects:
artificial intelligence.
And let's just be super direct about this. The ability to use AI in your daily workflow is no longer a nice-to-have. It is quickly becoming the single most valuable skill you can have. Why? Because developers who master these tools are just flat-out more productive, and companies are already hiring for it.
But here's the crucial point. These tools are amplifiers, not replacements. An AI assistant can whip up the boilerplate code for a new API in seconds, or suggest optimizations for a tricky database query you've been stuck on. It amplifies your skills. A great developer with AI becomes an exceptional one. Your fundamental knowledge matters more than ever.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it means understanding a whole new layer of tech. We're talking about a model hosting layer to actually run the AI models on powerful GPUs. You've got vector databases that let you search by meaning, not just keywords. Feature stores are key for making sure your data is consistent. Agent frameworks let you build AIs that can do complex, multi-step tasks. And observability toolkits are like your system's health monitor, watching for any problems. This is the new frontier.
So here's the ultimate takeaway. The choices you make about your technology, your architecture, your skills, they're not just technical details anymore. They are strategic decisions that will define what you're capable of building next. Yeah, the climb is challenging, for sure, but the view from the top is absolutely worth it. So the only question left is, are you ready for what's next?